Hey everyone, we're back with you know who.
Oh, hello, Shillo.
Our favorite dude.
Okay, let's give him some credit. At least he's not blindly defending Rise of Skywalker. We gotta give the man some credit here.
Yes, we give him at least respect for that.
I guess you could say.
I mean, at least he's not like Jacob's Quest, who's defending everything Disney Star Wars, no matter how bad it is.
Or
That's
confuse
something.
Matthew.
Especially, yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
isn't it funny how Jacob's Quest is out chilling Greedo?
Well, there's that. Anyway, so
I'm sorry, I had to do
the
that.
usual cast, General Strategy here. Then
The Shadow of King Nazrin, here to deliver you from the false light of original trilogy fanboys.
Yes.
and
Everyone's probably most hated Star Wars fan on the internet, at least one of them.
Yep, we got the
Yep.
most of the crew here.
Dark Zenobia. So, shall we get on with Hello Greedo?
Alright.
Oh god.
3,
Yeah.
2, 1, go.
For the past 20 years, since Qui-Gon Jinn first told little Anakin Skywalker about those microscopic life forms floating around in everyone's body, the topic has been a divide. And like most things, if you grew up in a post-midichlorian world, you probably don't care. They're just another part of Star Wars for you. But if you were a fan well before
like every normal
1999,
person
you might feel a little different. Let's talk about midichlorians, the concept of midichlorians, a little history of the Force outside of the films, scramble it all in one big-ass confusing Star Wars midichlorian omelet, and then try to dive into
Confusing,
why so many
are you
people have a
kidding me,
problem
dude?
with
It's
those
not
little
it's
microscopic
hard to
cellular-
understand.
Get them out of my Star Wars.
Midichlorians.
I'd
Well,
rather
my-
hear this from a
intelligent
Pause. Okay, so get your thoughts about this before we tackle the meat of the video.
Okay. We're not even like a minute in this video and he's already made some stupid argument. Like, I'm a first generation Star Wars fan and I can't stand midichlorians. It's confusing. Ah. It's like
That sounded
the
like
fancy
Clinkett there.
It's like the Phantom Menace, if you paid attention to what in the freaking movie, stated perfectly what midichlorians were and weren't. You don't need to read a freaking encyclopedia or the Dark Plagueis novel to understand midichlorians. This is just stupid nonsense, honestly.
Exactly.
It's just that these people are too stupid to pay attention.
Oh, wait until you hear what he has to say on the next section, midichlorians. So,
You guys will have to go ahead of me because I have to get some stuff for dinner. I'll be right
Okay.
back.
okay.
Alright, I'm at 44 seconds.
Okay,
All right.
so the next part you're gonna pause until 3 minutes and 43 seconds.
Okay.
353.
Okay, 353.
Alright, 3,
So
2, 1, go.
forms that originated from the foundation of life in the center of the galaxy and ultimately resided within the cells of all living organisms, thereby forming a symbiotic relationship with their hosts. The Force spoke through midichlorians, allowing certain beings to use the Force if they were sensitive enough to its powers. In order to gauge an individual's potential in the Force, blood tests were used to estimate the number of midichlorians within the subject's cells. In an issue of Ellie magazine from France in 1999, there was a midichlorian microscope. Their existence was integral to the all-encompassing energy field known as the Force, by serving as the link between the living and the cosmic aspects of the Force. The midichlorians made it possible to preserve an individual's consciousness after death. Anakin Skywalker had 20,000 midichlorians, which means he was super powerful.
Just because someone has a higher midichlorian count doesn't mean they're going to be powerful.
Yeah, I get that.
Midichlorians aren't the Force.
Yep, I know that too.
Some people with low
Yeah,
counts can be better
you
than
get
those
that,
with high
Greedo?
counts.
Yep, I get it. Lucas said, quote, "They are at the core of your life, which is the cell, the living cell. They are in a symbiotic relationship with the cell. And then because they're all interconnected as one, they can communicate with the larger force field. That's how you deal with the Force." Close quote. There are only 6 canon appearances of midichlorians. All mentioned,
Only
of
6?
course. Yeah, The
Really?
Phantom Menace, 3 episodes of The Clone Wars, Revenge of the Sith, and an indirect mention in Star Wars Rebels. No modern canon novel mentions midichlorians.
I wonder why.
No modern canon comic mentions midichlorians. And on the flip side, when it comes to
Nothing.
legends, there are about 40 mentions, the bulk of which are from novels.
yeah.
It does not seem like midichlorians are something modern canon cares to carry on, which I'm fine with. Despite
Of
me
course
trying
he
to
is.
rationalize their existence and
Oh,
even
he's fine
accepting their
with it.
existence because they don't really detract from my enjoyment of anything at all, and really, who gives a shit? I'm still not really a fan. I don't really care if they're ever explored again. Some things are better left with a little bit of mystery surrounding them. Because of a lack of canon mentions, midichlorians don't really have much context around them. In Legends, that was a different story. In Legends, it was said that a high midichlorian count often indicated greater force abilities, but that wasn't always the case. There was even a force detector that the Inquisitorius used to measure the force when they hunted Jedi. It used 2 sheet crystal paddles connected to a control pack powered by
Oh, look,
Dacian
he's rolling his
crystals found
eyes.
only on Mimban.
jeez.
Some Jedi believe midichlorians were
Look.
created by the Force to serve as a link between it and other life. Because so much of what was known about midichlorians came from legends,
Wait,
it's
what's going
difficult
on?
to say where everything falls into
We'll tell
place
you, King.
when it
Wait.
comes to canon. We really only have the films and the Clone Wars animated show
Jesus.
to go by, and there's really not that much there.
Production.
Okay,
right, let's
now you
pause.
can pause, Iron. Pause. Okay, so what do you guys think of that?
This just seems like he's just nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, like, why is he rolling his eyes at just like? Why does it bother him about the detector?
Yeah,
That's so stupid.
It's literally just
Apparently-
nitpicking.
Apparently, King, let's just say that Hello Greedo, he was reading the description of the force detectors, the ones used to detect midichlorians in beings. He was just rolling his eyes at how much it was, all the information he was reading about. There's that.
Jeez.
And
It,
also,
it makes sense they'd have something like that.
yep.
In
Also,
fact, I think the first appearance of something like that was in the Jedi Academy trilogy. I remember there's a scene where one of the characters discovered something like that.
yeah, it was in the first book, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, because
which
they, of
does-
course, they were rebuilding and cleaning up Coruscant from the whole Dark Empire thing, and they
Yeah.
came across that.
Except that back in the day, they were not described as midichlorian
That's true.
counters, detectors.
And it's not unheard of that you can invent detectors to scan for biological forms. I mean, you got some of those things in SWTOR, so it's not unheard. It's not implausible that you could get a detector for midichlorians.
You know, one thing that Hello Greedo fails to mention is midichlorians are not really explored that much in Legend. There's only like in a few novels here and there they are mentioned. The only novel that got into depth about midichlorians was Darth Plagueis, and most of
Yeah.
those mentions he's talking about are from one novel.
And also something else, Hello Greedo didn't bother to at least, mention in his video that there's not just the midichlorians or mentions, but there's also information of them in the reference guide, the guidebooks. What about
Very
those?
true.
You know, this is why I don't really trust someone when it comes to Star Wars knowledge using Wikipedia as their main source. Because I'm sorry, if you haven't even read any of the material in some way, that I don't really know if I can take your word for it. Because he just leaves out information purposely. Like, Darth Plagueis is where most of the information about midichlorians are brought up. Midichlorians are not even explored that much in Legend.
The only exception could be Jedi vs. Sith: The Essential Guide to the Force.
Yeah,
Even
like I said, all the other
even
mentions are
then,
rough.
they're barely mentioned in the EU. Midichlorians, EU authors, but for the most part, avoided midichlorians like the plague. Unless they really had to bring them up, they didn't ever bring up midichlorians.
they didn't like them, or was it something they wanted mysterious?
It's like the prequel era is like the only era in Star Wars expanded universe that really actually talked about midichlorians in any meaningful way.
Yeah.
And as for canon not talking about midichlorians, who cares? They'll probably explore midichlorians eventually in canon. It's not like they're not
It's
going to.
inevitable.
Yeah. Like,
So suck it, Hello Greedo. They'll probably fully explore midichlorians at some point in canon. More than they ever did in the EU. I'm calling it.
That's good. Maybe in the High
But
Republic
why would
era. That's gonna be interesting.
And they'll probably explain much more in depth than the expanded universe did. I don't know.
The
What if they
expanded
explain it?
Oh, come on, guys. Why would the Helagredo lead us wrong? I mean, after all, he predicted that Dark Empire would never appear in Disney canon.
Oh, and now look at him. He already put Rise of Skywalker as his number 3 worst Star Wars movie in his list.
Oops.
Oops. That's so funny. Anyway, so I think we should get on to the next part. King, we're in 3 minutes and 53 seconds. We're in there, okay? So 3 minutes. We're at 3 minutes 53 seconds. We're stopping until 7 minutes and 55 seconds.
All right.
Okay, ready? Mm-hmm.
All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
And history.
When did the concept of midichlorians come about? It's hard to say for sure, but I found something pretty weird while searching around for midichlorian stuff. It's kind of a real-life retcon, a little rewriting of the history books. So, a book came out in 2007 called The Making of Star Wars: The Definitive Story Behind the Original Film by J.W. Rinsler. The book features an interview with George Lucas from 1977. Let me read this passage. Again, this is from 1977. Quote, "The Force is really a way of seeing. It's a way of being with life. It really has nothing to do with weapons. The Force gives you the power to have extrasensory perception and to be able to see things and hear things, read minds, and levitate things. It is said that certain creatures are born with a higher awareness of the Force than humans. Their brains are different. They have more midichlorians in their cells." Close quote. And you may be thinking, wow, George Lucas talked about midichlorians in 1977? Well, it turns out everything in that quote is actually from 1977, except the mention of midichlorians. According to the book's author and an article on StarWars.com about midichlorians, the mention of midichlorians was added for the 2007 book. Quote, "Please note, while we were preparing text for the making of Star Wars, Lucas added a note to this passage about midichlorians, bringing his original words in line with his later thoughts and the events of the prequel trilogy." Close quote. It's kind of weird. The quoted interview on StarWars.com actually omits the midichlorian mention, because that's not how the actual interview went down back in 1977. But for some reason, Lucas wanted to make it seem like it was, I guess. It's just kind of weird. If this was changed
Who cares?
to fit a
Yes,
narrative,
exactly.
what else was
Well,
changed?
you know, that's just like
maybe nothing.
your
Maybe
opinion,
this is the only
man.
instance. But when one thing is a proven fabrication in a book that is supposed to kind of act as a historical look at the making of something, you know, I can't help but wonder if anything else was altered. I love this kind of shit. During a story conference for Return of the Jedi, which can be found in the Making of Star Wars
I'm
Return
sure
of the
you
Jedi
wonder
book,
about a lot of
Lawrence
things.
Kasdan,
Yes.
Richard Marquand, and George Lucas discuss the Force. Kasdan: "The Force was available to anyone who could hook into it?" Lucas: "Yes, everybody can do it." Kasdan: "Not just the Jedi." Lucas: "It's just the Jedi who take the time to do it." Marquand: "They use it as a technique." Lucas: "Like yoga. If you want to take the time to do it, you can do it. But the ones that really want to do it are the ones who are into that kind of thing. Also like karate. Obviously, Star Wars has changed significantly over the past 40 years. Lucas changed his mind a lot, contradicted himself often, tried to piece together two trilogies using puzzle pieces that sometimes just didn't line up. So, we should take these quotes from the past with a grain of salt and an understanding that Star Wars, the Force, the Jedi, everything has evolved over the decades, continues to evolve now, and the idea that everything was planned and laid out in detail from start to finish from the very beginning is silly. Ideas are allowed to evolve and change over time, especially in a continuing saga. It's just interesting to hear what the Force was all about early on.
My stupid.
Okay, pause. Pause before we get to his own.
Oh boy.
Okay, who wants to talk first?
If I have to be honest, okay, doesn't he contradict himself towards the end of this section?
Explain.
First, he complains about, about midichlorians being added in a book that's supposed to be historically accurate. Yet then later he says things change over time.
Oh boy.
I don't think he has the self-awareness to realize his own hypocrisy.
My God, this is so stupid.
There is that, but let's just didn't say and let's just go with the passage. The one in the making of Star Wars. Well, like you said, Arsenovia, I guess who cares?
Seriously, they didn't even add that much to the quote.
It was just one sentence.
And
even then, it still mentioned that, before that people had to be born with, certain abilities.
Yeah, it's still.
So it still alludes to it, even if it wasn't originally mentioned.
Yeah, it's some way to tell. Well, I guess midichlorians is the way to finally tell who can actually use the Force and who can't. Like George even originally said so, even without mentioning midichlorians. That same quote he mentioned. So if anything, it's just adding more context to what he was originally saying regarding, some beings actually have more awareness of the Force and some don't. So there is that. Han Solo, he never was able to use the Force and become a Jedi, or any Force for that matter. So
don't give Disney ideas.
Oh. But anyway, I'm just making a point, Arsenovia. There are those living beings in the galaxy that cannot tackle the Force. Jabba is blind to the Force. There's that. So yeah, there has to be an explanation. He can't. He just doesn't have too much awareness. So there's that. Anything else to say on this part before we get to his stupid thoughts?
You mean the meat of the video?
Oh, this is gonna be delicious.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Right. 3, 2, 1, go!
Thoughts.
You have to remember, when people first learned about midichlorians, there wasn't Season 6 of the Clone Wars, there weren't novels, there weren't video games. All we had was Qui-Gon Jinn's short explanation. And after 2 decades of mystery and magic, after 2 decades of Yoda, the Guru, after 2 decades of anybody can be a Jedi, to suddenly, seemingly, upend everything by introducing cellular measurement in some nebulous game of biological determinism was understandably irritating. Wait, the Force is kind of measurable? What the fuck? Was the backlash to midichlorians overblown? Yeah, as backlashes usually are. That's kind of why I shrug my shoulders at a lot of the rumblings in the fandom. I've seen it before. It's not the first time. It's not the last. I digress. There's an argument that midichlorians are kind of an analogy for natural talent. I can play basketball all day, every day, but I would never be as good as Michael Jordan. I could try to write catchy tunes from sunup to sundown.
Oh God, this is such cringe. This is so stupid.
Some folks are born with it, a natural leg up, an inherent talent. And if you look at midichlorians through that lens, it can be a useful way to interpret them. I can train nonstop and try to hone my proficiency in the Force, but I'll never be as talented as Anakin Skywalker. I understand that point of view. I can make sense of it. But again, this original trilogy fanboy asshole just can't bring himself to love the concept. The concept of the Force now seemed to have some kind of capped video game leveling system that factored in heredity and bloodline with some kind of locked
video game level
that
system
you're born with. Sorry, you're stuck. Because on the surface level, it's a governor. Not like a political governor, but like an engine governor. It throttles back potential, holds back potential, level restrictions and limitations. Instead of one's determination and mindset solely being what they thrive on, well, sorry, Bubba. Maybe you should have been born with more midichlorians. It pumps the brakes on hope. In its attempt to give context and grow the audience's knowledge of the Force, it actually kind of complicated things in a weird and redundant way. And I say redundant because if a midichlorian count doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be super powerful in the Force, then what's the point of adding them into the story? I mean, were midichlorians just there to give us a concrete and clearly defined statistic to further this chosen one prophecy? Look, highest numbers ever. Great batting average, high IQ, kids going places. Numbers don't lie, chosen one. Maybe I'm being a little too cynical. But for 2 decades, the Force was ethereal. A little mythology, a little 70s hashhead mysticism sprinkled with some spirituality. You didn't need to know how things worked. Who cared how the Force worked? It was a state of mind. It was a realization that there was something bigger than yourself that you could tap into, that you could become a part of. And it always seemed as though the Force was even mysterious, a little bit, to those who were...
It still is, you idiot.
But then things became detail-oriented. In an attempt to explain the Force, or rather the way it works, it made the Force more convoluted. In some weird counterintuitive way, the more mysterious the Force was, the more it kind of made sense. The Force is strong with this one. It's about feeling. It's a sense, a connection that you can't quite put your finger on. Do midichlorians add anything of importance? You know, I suppose they do, for certain Star Wars fans. The fans who love hyper detail and want to have every single minor thing explained. If you're a details-oriented Star Wars viewer and that's something that you love primarily, where you enjoy knowing how things work, things that don't necessarily impact a movie or a story, the narrative of the story, you know, maybe all the minor information and tiny details make you enjoy the big picture even more. The idea of the Force having a worldly physical connection in midichlorians, hey, I get it. I can get behind you. I recognize that midichlorians don't really change anything. The Force still has mystery. It's still spiritual. And in the grand scheme of things, who gives a shit? I don't even remember what the fuck I just talked about for a few minutes. I just rambled on. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh my god.
Let's try to get this video
Okay,
to
I think
10
we can pause
likes. I have gum on my shoe.
Ah.
Buy a t-shirt.
What the fuck? Okay, let's pause. Okay, I think we should going crazy. Anyway, so
you know, hello, Grito. This is probably one of the few times I agree with you. What was the point of this video? It's like this video would have been decent had he not included this last section.
I think we're beginning to see early signs of Alzheimer's.
Oh boy.
That's.
I mean,
anyway.
you better check yourself, hello, Grito, or you'll end up like Uncle Joe.
That's something. Anyway, should we tackle his arguments? I guess first of all, saying that the Force now has a video game metric to measure it on, to limit it, so it no longer has any limitless potential like it used to have.
Are you kidding? The Force always had limitless potential.
Yeah,
have you not paid it?
Many other franchises that have some sort of magic system, there's always a limit. There's always, like, look at Wheel of Time, for example. There's like some channelers that have certain potential.
Yeah, and there's certain powers that women can use that men can't, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So it's
Also,
not unheard of, Hello Greedo.
Also, something else, Hello Greedo, regarding. Oh, so you want the Force not have any restrictions or limits? No midi-chlorians or anything? Well, let's look at what happened with Disney Star Wars without that. Just look at the sequels. Look at how the Force is now.
The Force doesn't make any sense. It's all convoluted. I mean, in 3 movies, the sequels ruined the Force more than any of the prequels ever could, with one sentence.
Yep.
Indeed. It's like the Force Awakens made it so you no longer have to train to even use the Force. The Last Jedi made it so Rey downloaded her fucking powers from Kylo Ren. If Rey can, everyone else do it too? I mean, why bother?
I mean, also freaking kids can do without proper training.
It's like, Rey's Jedi Order. Why train Jedi when Rey could basically have her students download her Force abilities?
Also, the Last Jedi makes it so that anyone Force, basically going with the fact that has a Force, you can just use it.
But then the Rise of Skywalker went back on that. It's like, and Palpatine did some feats that make no sense in Disney canon.
So this is what you get.
Well,
you got what you wanted, You got what you wanted, Hello Greedo and Confused Matthew. I hope it was worth it.
It's like the freaking Force is more convoluted in canon than it ever was in the EU. It's like, how can someone who become strong in the Force and a Jedi Master and a Sith Lord in a year? It's ridiculous. It's like,
it's almost like you need restrictions to create limits so that you can build a pacing of a character's growth, and thus they can overcome those limits over time.
It's like, here's the thing. It's like, under Hello Greedo's logic, Rey's freaking midichlorian count would probably be over 60 or 80,000.
I actually would go with 100,000.
Yeah, I mean, she's like the most powerful Force user we've seen on screen. Hell, she's more overpowered than any EU character that I've seen in Silence.
Even Abeloth?
Oh god, I don't even want to think about that.
Let's go with yes, because she managed to defeat Palpatine with just 1 year of training, a little Palpatine blood, and a motivational speech from the Force Ghost.
Oh, but wait, she doesn't have Palpatine blood, according to freaking the novelization. She's the daughter of a failed Palpatine clone.
Oh.
When that still means she has Palpatine's DNA in her.
Oh.
Oh God. So hello, Greedo.
And Greedo, bear in mind that technically means that Palpatine is both Rey's grandfather and father. It's like
oh God.
And if they kept the reveal Palpatine being Anakin's father, that kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker would have been Kylo Ren kissing his like aunt.
Oh God, that was.
God, it's
anyway.
It really is Greek mythology.
Oh God, indeed. So well, there you go, Hello Greedo. You got what you wanted. You wanted a Star Wars timeline with little to no midichlorians. There's the result.
And look what we have, dude.
Yeah.
Look how fun it is now.
Yeah. Oh God, man, this idiot! Like, oh my God. Oh boy. Any other thoughts to say on this guy? Oh my.
The more Hello Greedo speaks, the more he exposes himself as a filthy casual. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, okay, we could all not really like Star Wars Explained, but the difference between Explained and Hello Greedo, at least he does the frickin' work when it comes to Star Wars knowledge. He doesn't go on frickin' Wikipedia like some lazy asshole to learn about to talk about Star Wars lore.
Also, at least Star Wars Explained recently has not been cheating on Expanded Universe ever since, I guess, early 2018. Since then, he's been more chill about it. He's not even been defending too much the sequels. Well, Hello Greedo is still cheating on the Expanded Universe, and he still is, well, defending the sequels. The last
He
Jedi.
can't. He can't defend the sequels. Rise of Skywalker completely burned the entire Foundation to the ground, even more than Last Jedi
tried.
did.
Oh, he tried defending it by saying that, the Rise of Skywalker has made me appreciate The Last Jedi. Well, but that's another video for another time we'll react to.
Oh, and by the way, people, consider this a preview for our eventual Rise of Skywalker teardown.
Ooh, yeah, it's gonna arrive in maybe a month.
That's gonna be great.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it.
Indeed. Anyway, some final thoughts.
Oh, poor Hello Greedo.
You're still the same useful idiot from last time.
I mean,
it's so good to be back.
have you ever heard this, Hello Greedo? It's better to be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all. I butchered that quote.
I'll do it for you. It's better to remain silent and be thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt.
Oh God.
Well, there's that.
Well, that was something, people.
I don't know about you guys, but I think Greedo's been drinking too much skooma.
or maybe he's done too many death sticks.
That's something. Anyway, so I guess that's it, Iron.
All right, I hope you people enjoyed that. We're glad to have Hello Greedo back.
Indeed, even if the video's a little old, but it's good for us to be back and react.
Yes.
All right, see you guys later.
Bye.
Later.
Farewell, mortals.